The Valari had always believed they were the true masters of shadows. For thousands of years, their ships had moved silently through the stars, slipping into the orbits of young civilizations. They never spoke to the creatures they observed. They never interfered. They only watched. It was a game to them, a tradition that proved their superiority. Their technology made them unseen, untouchable. Cloaking fields bent light around their forms until nothing remained but emptiness. Energy dampeners erased their signals from scanners and satellites. Even their footsteps were erased by sound-masking fields. To every other race, they were ghosts, present but never noticed. When the Valari turned their eyes toward Earth, they carried the same arrogance. Humans, they believed, would never know. At first, it seemed true. Valari ships drifted above cities, invisible against the night sky. They slipped into crowded streets, brushing past men and women rushing home after work. They moved through airports, markets, and train stations. They leaned close to hear whispers of conversation, studied the strange glowing rectangles in human hands, and laughed quietly at the clumsy machines humans used to guard their borders. Tavarin, a senior observer, often found joy in these missions. He had visited more than 10 worlds, but Earth had an energy he could not deny. Cities pulsed with noise and light, machines rolling on wheels, voices rising in countless languages. Humans were messy but alive. Still, he believed they were blind. He stood on a crowded street in New York City, the neon glow painting reflections across windows. Humans walked past him, brushing shoulders without knowing he was there. He leaned, close to a man waiting for a bus, close enough to see the breath fog in the cool air. The man checked his watch, frowned, then looked up suddenly as if someone had called his name. Tavarin froze. The human's eyes scanned the air beside him. They lingered for a moment, then moved on. The man shook his head, muttered to himself, and went back to waiting. Strange, Tavarin whispered in his own language. For a moment he almost saw, but that was impossible. Other Valari reported the same odd experiences. A farmer in Brazil paused in the middle of his work, turning toward the empty field where a Valari scout crouched. A child in Japan suddenly giggled and waved at a corner of the room where no one visible stood. A soldier on patrol in the desert raised his weapon at thin air, convinced something had moved near him. Each time the Valari reassured themselves it was nothing. Coincidence, instinct, the random movements of simple minds. Their cloaking was perfect. Their silence unbreakable, yet the reports kept coming. Inside the Valari command ship, orbiting unseen above Earth's clouds, Tavarin joined his fellow officers in the observation chamber. The walls glowed with shifting light as holograms displayed recordings of human cities. Humans react too often, said Rielan, a younger officer, tapping his claws against the display. They turn their heads, raise their eyes, stop their steps. It is unsettling. Unsettling is not the same as dangerous, replied Tavarin. They are guessing. They sense nothing. But even as he said it, doubt brushed against his mind. He remembered one night in a quiet park. A woman had been sitting alone on a bench reading a book. He had leaned over her shoulder, curious about the symbols on the page. Without warning, she had shut the book and whispered, "I know you're there." Her voice had been soft, trembling, as if she doubted her own words. But the way she looked into the empty space beside her, it had shaken him. He had fled before she could speak again. The Valari council aboard the ship dismissed these fears. They had studied hundreds of worlds before. Some species had animals that growled at shadows. Others had sensors that flickered when cloaking fields passed by, but none had ever truly discovered them. Humans are no different, declared the commander. Their minds are imaginative. They believe in spirits, ghosts, and unseen watchers. Their stories will explain away their instincts. They will not see us. The council agreed. The mission continued. But down on Earth, more humans were beginning to notice. In a small town in Scotland, a boy woke in the night and told his parents someone was standing in his room. They found nothing, of course. In Kenya, a shepherd felt eyes on his back while tending his flock. He turned sharply, calling out, but no one answered. In Mexico, A taxi driver swore he heard someone breathing behind him, though the seat was empty. One by one, stories spread. Most were dismissed as imagination, but some lingered. Small warnings whispered from one person to another. Something is watching us. The Valari collected these stories with great amusement. They even began to compete among themselves, seeing who could stand closest to a human without being noticed. Some crept into bedrooms, standing silently by sleeping forms. Others walked through schools, brushing chalk dust off desks. Tavarin once stood in the middle of a crowded train, invisible among dozens of people listening to their laughter. And yet deep inside, he could not shake the memory of that woman's whisper. I know you're there. Weeks passed. The Valari built hidden bases in the oceans and mountains, their structures cloaked just like their ships. They gathered samples of Earth's air, water, and soil. They learned human languages, copying words to better understand their prey, or perhaps their future subjects. But the humans were not as blind as the Valari hoped. Across the world, scientists began recording strange anomalies. Cameras caught faint distortions in the air. Microphones picked up echoes where no source existed. And people, ordinary people, continued to feel the presence of things they could not see. Humanity did not yet know who was watching them, but they knew something was there. And in the silence of a New York street, one man was about to prove it. Tavarin followed him that night, as he had followed many others. The man walked alone, carrying a bag of groceries, his steps steady and calm. Tavarin stayed close, enjoying the thrill of being unseen. He leaned closer, close enough to feel the warmth of the man's body in the cool air. The man stopped suddenly. He did not turn. He did not run. Instead, he whispered, his voice low but clear. I know you're there. Tavarin froze, his blood turning cold. The man continued walking, as if nothing had happened. But his words echoed in the alien's mind. For the first time in his long career as an invisible watcher, Tavarin felt truly seen. The city of New York slept unevenly. Some streets were bathed in the soft glow of street lamps, while others vanished into darkness. To most humans, it was an ordinary night. But to Tavarin, the Valari observer, it was anything but ordinary. For weeks he had followed humans through the city, testing the limits of his invisibility. He had walked among crowds, leaned over tablet screens, and even passed through apartments. No one had ever truly acknowledged him, until tonight. The man he followed carried a brown paper bag, his shoes tapping lightly against the pavement. He seemed ordinary, tired eyes, unremarkable clothes, and the rhythm of a man who had spent the day working hard. Tavarin had observed countless humans in his career, but there was something about this one that drew his attention. Perhaps it was his stillness, the way he moved as if he were listening to something unseen. Tavarin leaned closer, eager to study him. The air around the man was warm, and the scent of roasted coffee and bread floated faintly from the bag. The observer's curiosity sharpened. Humans had many strange habits, and this one's habits seemed particularly aware. Then it happened. The man stopped. He didn't look back, didn't reach for his pocket, and didn't speak to anyone. But he whispered softly, almost a murmur, I know you're there. Tavarin froze. His long, slender limbs stiffened. 1,000 thoughts ran through his mind at once. This was impossible. Humans had never detected a Valari before, not one. I must have imagined it, Tavarin muttered to himself. Yet the words did not settle his mind. The whisper had come with certainty, with calm awareness. Not fear, not panic, awareness. The man continued walking, humming a quiet tune to himself. But he did not turn. Tavarin followed, careful not to touch or bump into anything. The city seemed unnaturally quiet around them, as if the universe itself held its breath. Back aboard the hidden Valari ship, reports from other observers began arriving. Their findings were similar. Humans had been noticing them more often. Some had whispered warnings into empty streets. Others had moved objects subtly as if responding to invisible presences. Relan paced back and forth in the observation chamber. "It is spreading," he said. "Humans are no longer blind. They feel us. They sense us." Tavaran leaned over the holographic display, his thoughts still on the man he had followed. But how? This species is young. They should not have this skill. Not instinct. Not awareness. Nothing. We are invisible to every sensor, every sense, every tool. And yet... He trailed off. "And yet humans are different," Relan finished. "We underestimated them. This is more than instinct. Something in them is unique." The commander, Varen, spoke from the central platform. His voice was calm but edged with concern. "We have studied countless species. None detect us. None see us when we choose to remain hidden. If humans sense us, we must find the cause." The Valari had always relied on science and technology. They had sensors that could detect a single heartbeat in a stadium of thousands. They had cloaking that bent light around their forms perfectly. They had silence that could erase footsteps and mask sounds. But humans were breaking the rules. They were doing something that defied every calculation. Meanwhile, the human continued his walk through the quiet city. He passed under flickering street lamps and over uneven pavements. He paused at intersections, glancing briefly to his sides. His voice was soft but certain as he muttered, "I know you're still there. You're always there." Tavaran felt a chill. For centuries, Valari observers had never been acknowledged. Never. And now this fragile human had not only sensed him, but also spoken directly to his invisible presence. The observer studied the man carefully. His instincts told him to retreat, to disappear completely, but his curiosity held him in place. There was something different here. A confidence, a calm strength in the human that he had never seen in other species. The man stopped near a small park. A soft breeze moved through the trees, carrying the faint scent of grass and flowers. He placed his grocery bag on a bench and knelt, adjusting his shoes as if unaware of the invisible being near him. Then, very softly, he whispered again, "You do not belong here. But I can feel you anyway." Tavaran's heart raced. The words were not fear, not anger. They were observation. Respectful, almost polite, but firm. Humans had survived dangerous worlds for millennia. They had evolved to notice predators, to sense danger even when it could not be seen, and somehow this human could detect him. Across the planet, similar incidents occurred. In a quiet village in France, a farmer stopped in his field, convinced he was being watched. He whispered into the empty air, "I see you. I know you're there. Leave my animals in peace." No one responded, of course, but the Valari hiding among the hills quickly recorded the interaction, and confusion rippled through their ranks. In a desert in Australia, a ranger paused during his night patrol. He had felt a presence behind him. He turned slowly, speaking softly. "I know you're watching, I can feel it." The Valari crouched in the shadows, invisible, and realized something terrifying. Humans didn't need sight to see them. Even children felt it. In Japan, a little girl playing hide-and-seek whispered, "I know you're there, don't hide from me." Her mother thought it was imagination, but the Valari who had been observing her knew the truth. Humans had a hidden ability. Tavaran returned to the ship after his night walk. His mind raced. For centuries, Valari had been silent watchers. They had believed they were untouchable, invisible, and unseen. They had studied civilizations without ever being discovered. But humans were different. He recorded his observations in meticulous detail. The man's calm awareness, his soft whispers, the way he moved with confidence even knowing something unseen followed him. Humans did not react with fear. They did not scream or flee. They simply knew. "This changes everything," Tavaran whispered to himself. "If one human can sense me, how many others can?" In the command chamber, the council debated the implications. Varen addressed the team. "Our cloaking technology has been flawless for centuries. Sensors have always failed. Civilizations have always remained unaware. Humans are breaking this pattern. They are sensing us. We must understand why. We must adapt, Relon added. We cannot rely solely on technology anymore. We must observe them closer, learn their methods, and perhaps we must test them. Tavaran nodded silently. He remembered the man's whisper, the calm certainty in his voice, the quiet power in the simple words. I know you're there. It was a small phrase, almost insignificant, but it had shaken him to his core. No other species had ever done this. Humans were not only alive, they were aware in ways that defied logic. The next night, Tavaran returned to the same streets. This time, he was not alone. Other Valari had joined him, curious to witness what a human could do. They followed in silence, observing the man as he walked, bag in hand, moving with calm precision through the city. He paused at a street corner and whispered again, You are here. I know it. But you cannot hide from me. A chill ran through the Valari team. One by one, they had been trained to ignore humans, to assume invisibility meant power. But now, their confidence faltered. Humans had an awareness that technology could not replicate. Humans had intuition, instinct, and perception, built from generations of surviving in a dangerous world. And this human, ordinary in every way, was proof. Tavaran realized something important. The game had changed. For centuries, Valari had been hunters, but now humanity had begun to turn the tables. The whispers of humans in the night were more than words. They were warnings. The Valari would need to adapt, or they might face consequences they had never imagined. The city hummed quietly around them, unaware of the invisible drama unfolding, above and below. The man walked home, humming softly, his presence a quiet assertion of human strength. Tavaran and his team followed, silent and invisible, shaken but curious. For the first time, the Valari understood a simple truth. Humans were not ordinary. They could sense the unseen, hear the unheard, and whisper into the shadows without fear. And in that moment, Tavaran knew that everything he had learned about watching civilizations would no longer be enough, because humanity was awake, and the Watchers were about to be seen. The Valari had always believed that intelligence and technology were the ultimate measures of superiority. They had watched countless worlds, seen civilizations rise and fall, and left them untouched because they were predictable. Machines obeyed rules. Minds followed patterns. The universe was orderly, but humans were different. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly. One observer reported that a child in a Japanese village waved at an invisible figure and laughed, a gesture of recognition the Valari could not explain. Another observer noted that a soldier in the African desert paused mid-patrol, convinced he was being watched by something unseen. A farmer in Europe stopped tending his fields and whispered softly into the night air. Across the globe, subtle patterns emerged. Humans did not scream when confronted with the invisible. They did not panic. They acknowledged the presence, whispered words, sometimes gentle, sometimes firm, and continued with their lives. Tavaran studied these incidents carefully. He had followed humans for weeks, observing, recording, analyzing. He had walked among them in the streets, museums, parks, and even train stations. He had never been noticed until now. And the truth frightened him. Humans were sensing him. In a quiet apartment in New York, a woman sat by her window. She had been working late into the night, reading a book by lamplight. Tavaran hovered outside, invisible, fascinated by her movements. She paused mid-page and looked toward the dark street below. I know you're there, she whispered softly. Tavaran froze. He had encountered whispers before, small remarks from casual humans, but there was something different here. She did not speak in fear. There was no panic, no trembling, only certainty, awareness. Across the Valari observation network, similar reports arrived from around the world. More humans were noticing them. Scientists in isolated labs recorded small distortions in the air, subtle fluctuations that could not be explained by technology. Children insisted they could feel someone standing behind them. Farmers, shepherds, and workers whispered to the wind, acknowledging a presence only they could sense. The Velari Command Council grew uneasy. "We must understand this," said Veyran, the commander, as holographic screens displayed reports from every continent. "Humans are no longer blind to our presence. Their instinct, whatever it is, threatens our operations. If they can detect us, then our control is compromised." "Instinct alone cannot explain it," Raylan replied, pacing the chamber. "They see us without sensors, without instruments. They do not fear us, but they know we are there. Our technology is supposed to make us untouchable, and yet—" He gestured toward the displays showing countless cases. Tavaran nodded. "It is not fear, not logic, not reason. Humans have a gift we cannot measure. It is perception, awareness. Beyond machines, they sense presence, movement, and intent without seeing or hearing. They know when they are being watched." The commander leaned forward. "This is unprecedented. We have underestimated them. We have believed invisibility equals power, that technology equals supremacy. But humans do not follow the rules we expect. We cannot predict them with algorithms or sensors." For the first time in centuries, the Velari were uncertain. The human ability to sense invisible presences was subtle but consistent. It was not magic, not technology, not psychic power. It was instinct. Humans evolved on a dangerous planet. From the beginning, survival depended on noticing predators, sensing danger, and reacting before threats became real. They learned to feel the smallest changes in the air, to notice shifts in temperature, the faintest sounds, and the tiniest movement in the environment. Their senses were connected to their minds in ways that technology could not replicate. Tavaran realized that humans had carried this skill for millennia, even while building machines, cities, and civilizations. It was a hidden gift, buried under years of culture and progress. And now, it had revealed itself. He thought about the man he had followed in New York. The man's calm awareness, his soft whispers, his unshakable confidence. These were not fear, nor were they error. They were the result of generations of evolution. The human could sense presence, even the invisible, and Tavaran, for the first time, felt vulnerable. Across the world, humans began responding to the invisible watchers in unexpected ways. In HFY, Paris, a gardener whispered to the shadows among the trees, "I know you are here. I will watch you too." In Kenya, a ranger adjusted his route, speaking softly into the night. "I can feel you, but you will not surprise me." In a small town in Alaska, a group of teenagers walking home from a movie laughed quietly at the empty air. "You can't hide from us." Every incident, no matter how small, challenged the Velari's assumptions. They had believed invisibility granted ultimate control. They had believed humans were naive, simple, and predictable. They had been wrong. Tavaran spent days analyzing humans in different environments. He observed workers, students, parents, and children. Each group displayed subtle awareness of unseen presence. They might not see the watchers directly, but they noticed changes in air movement, shadows where none should be, faint, untraceable sounds, the feeling of being observed. Some humans even reacted directly. They whispered warnings, adjusted their behavior, or confronted the empty space as if addressing someone real. The Velari were puzzled. Their cloaking technology was perfect. Their sensors were flawless. Yet humans were still aware. Raylan, observing the data, muttered, "It is as if they are born to sense us, to feel us. No technology, no cloak, no silence can hide from them." Tavaran considered the implications. For centuries, the Velari had been the ultimate hunters. Their cloaking allowed them to observe and study civilizations without interference. They could manipulate, analyze, and experiment without risk. But humans had changed the rules. Humans did not need to see to know. They did not need to hear to understand. Their instincts were a weapon the Velari had never anticipated. One human could detect an invisible presence and act with calm certainty. Imagine an entire species capable of this. The Valari's confidence faltered. They had underestimated humanity, and now their arrogance could cost them. The humans were not only sensing the invisible, they were responding. Tivaran recalled the soft whispers, the quiet words. I know you are here. I see you. I feel you. Every whisper, every acknowledgement chipped away at the Valari's sense of control. For the first time, the invisible watchers were aware that someone or something could see them. The Command Council debated the next steps. We must test them, Varen said. We must understand the limits of this perception. Can all humans sense us, or only a few? How can we adapt? Relon added, we must be careful. Humans do not fear us. They respond calmly, confidently. This is new. We have no experience with this. Tivaran stayed silent, thinking of the man he had followed in New York. The human's calm certainty had left a mark on him. That simple whisper had shifted the balance of power in ways he could not yet understand. Across the planet, humans continued to act instinctively. They adjusted their paths, whispered warnings, and laughed at empty streets. They showed resilience, awareness, and courage. For the Valari, centuries of study and superiority offered no protection. Humans were alive in ways that technology could not measure. They sensed, they adapted, and they communicated with forces unseen. Tivaran finally spoke to his fellow observers. We have underestimated them, not because they are weak, but because they are strong in ways we cannot quantify. This species, it is remarkable. Their instincts, their awareness, it is a hidden gift, and it may prove dangerous to us if we ignore it. The human world remained largely unaware of the invisible watchers. Children played, parents argued, workers labored, and the streets buzzed with life. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet force had begun to awaken. A species that had once been prey or observation subjects was now proving its worth in ways the Valari could never have predicted. And somewhere in the dark streets of New York, the man whispered once more, softly, confidently, I know you're there, and I am not afraid. Tivaran heard the words even from the shadows. They resonated deep within him. Humanity was awake, and the silent watchers were no longer in control. The Valari had never needed to reveal themselves. Their cloaking technology had kept them hidden for centuries. They had studied entire civilizations without ever being discovered. But humans had changed the rules. Across the globe, humans were noticing them, whispering to the empty air, adjusting their movements, even challenging the unseen presence with calm confidence. Every observation report arriving at the Valari command ship shook their sense of superiority. Tivaran paced the observation deck. He had spent weeks following humans, noting their responses to invisible watchers. He recalled the New York man who had whispered, I know you're there, and I am not afraid. That phrase had haunted him. It was not fear, not panic, not confusion. It was awareness, and humanity had it in abundance. We cannot continue to hide, Tivaran said to Relon, his voice low. Humans will sense us. They will adapt faster than we anticipate. If we remain invisible, we may be at risk. Relon's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting we show ourselves? Yes, Tivaran replied. We must test them. We must see how they respond when we are no longer shadows. The Command Council debated the idea. Varen, the leader, was cautious. Revealing ourselves could be dangerous. Humans are unpredictable. We do not know the extent of their awareness. But if we wait, they may gain the upper hand. Finally, the Council agreed. A team would make controlled contact with selected humans, carefully monitored. Scientists, soldiers, and leaders would be observed. They would see the Valari, not as invisible ghosts, but as real beings. It was a gamble. The first encounter occurred in a quiet military research base in Germany. A team of Valari observers materialized before a group of humans working late at night. The humans froze for a moment, but none screamed. None fled. A general, tall and composed, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and observant, studied the figures in front of him. He did not panic. Instead, he leaned slightly forward, speaking softly. "We've known you were here. The question is, why are you here?" The Valari felt a moment of unease. Never had any species confronted them in this way. They had always been the silent watchers, untouchable and unseen. And now humans were calm, confident, and aware. Tevarin realized the truth immediately. Humans were not afraid of the unseen. They were prepared to act. Across the globe, other Valari made contact in similar ways. In a remote village in India, a Valari emerged from invisibility near a farmer working in his field. The farmer paused, not in fear, but in quiet observation. "I know you are here," he said softly. "Do not harm my animals, I am watching." In Tokyo, a Valari approached a busy street where a small child walked home from school. The child glanced at the empty space and whispered, "I see you. You cannot hide from me." Each encounter produced the same reaction. Calm awareness, no panic, no chaos. Humans were not merely sensing the invisible, they were asserting themselves. Back on the command ship, the Council watched the encounters. With a mixture of awe and concern, Reland paced nervously. "We are the observers," he said. "We have never been noticed. We have never been challenged. And now, every human we contact reacts with awareness and confidence. How can this be?" Tevarin responded, "It is in their nature. Humans evolved on a dangerous planet. They learned to sense predators, to feel danger, to detect what could not be seen. This instinct is their gift, and it cannot be hidden even from us." Veyran leaned forward. "Then we must reconsider everything. Humans are not prey. They are not subjects. They are equals, perhaps more." The room fell silent as the realization sank in. The Valari began studying humans more closely. They analyzed movement patterns, studied instinctive behaviors, and watched how individuals responded to invisible observers. They discovered something extraordinary. Humans did not merely react, they anticipated. In New York, Tevarin followed, a scientist working late in her lab. She paused mid-step, tilting her head slightly as if listening to a presence no one else could detect. "I know you're there," she whispered. "I feel you. You are close, but I am ready." Tevarin realized she was not afraid. She was confident, aware, and prepared to act if necessary. Humanity had evolved a skill that no technology, no weapon, and no cloak could override. Across the world, similar patterns appeared. In the deserts of Australia, a ranger patrolling the night felt something follow him. He turned, whispered softly, "I see you. You are near, but I know how to act." In the forests of Canada, a teenager noticed a shadow that moved unnaturally. She spoke quietly. "I know you are here. I can feel you." The Valari observed and recorded. Every human who sensed them reacted with calm, careful awareness. No panic, no chaos, just quiet, focused recognition. It was clear, humans had evolved a hidden gift, a perception instinct that defied science, technology, and the Valari's centuries of experience. Tevarin stood on a rooftop in New York one night watching the city glow below. He had followed humans for weeks, noting their awareness, studying their reactions, and recording their whispers. The man he had followed before walked along the street, carrying groceries as if nothing unusual was happening. Tevarin hovered, invisible, and listened as the man whispered to the empty air. "You are here. I know you, but I am not afraid." The observer felt a shiver run through him. This ordinary human, fragile and small in appearance, had no fear of beings who could bend light and erase themselves from reality. Humans were alive in ways the Valari could not measure. They were aware, prepared, and confident. It was a turning point. In the command chamber, Veyran summarized their findings. Humans are not prey. They are aware, They sense the unseen. They anticipate danger. They act with instinct, and they respond with calm confidence. Our technology means nothing to them. Our invisibility does not make us superior here. Relon added, "We must reconsider our strategy. We cannot manipulate them as we do other civilizations. They are awake, aware, and capable. We may have underestimated them, but we cannot underestimate them again." Tavaran nodded. "They are different. We studied countless species and none had this ability. They sense us without instruments, without magic, without technology. This is their gift and it makes them formidable." The room fell silent, filled with the weight of realization. The Valari had always been the hunters. For the first time, they felt like the hunted. As the night deepened, humans continued their quiet defiance. A group of teenagers walked home from a park, noticing the slight flicker of movement near the trees. One whispered softly, "I know you are there. We are not afraid." A farmer in Brazil stopped while tending his animals, speaking to the empty air. "I see you. You are near, but I am ready." In homes, offices, and streets, humans whispered to the unseen, acknowledging it without panic. The Valari could not hide from them. Their centuries of observation, their technology, and their invisibility meant nothing. Humanity's hidden gift, instinctive awareness, had shifted the balance. Tavaran reflected on the encounters he had witnessed. Humans were not naive. They were not weak. They were awake in ways the Valari could not fully understand. Their instincts, honed by generations of survival, allowed them to sense danger, presence, and movement, invisible to even the most advanced technology, and they responded not with fear but with quiet, confident awareness. The Valari realized a new truth. Humans were not just another species to observe. They were beings of resilience, awareness, and strength. And the silent watchers could no longer assume they were untouchable. Somewhere in the city, the man walked home once more, bag in hand, whispering softly to the empty street, "You are here. I see you, but I am not afraid." Tavaran watched, from above, invisible and humbled. Humanity had shown the Valari that the unseen could be sensed, that instinct could overcome technology, and that courage did not require weapons or numbers. The turning point had come. The silent watchers were no longer in control. Humanity was awake, aware, and ready, and the Valari had no choice but to acknowledge it. The Valari had come to Earth expecting silence, obedience, and invisibility. For centuries, their technology allowed them to watch without being watched, to study without being noticed. Every species they encountered had been predictable. But humans were not predictable. Humans were awake. Humans were aware. Tavaran hovered above a quiet city street, invisible and still. He had followed humans for weeks, analyzing their responses, recording their whispers, and watching as their calm awareness defied centuries of Valari assumptions. Each encounter had confirmed what he feared. Humanity was different. They could sense him. They could feel his presence. And they were not afraid. Tonight, a final test was planned. The Valari would reveal themselves fully to a human leader, someone trained in both observation and instinct. They would see how the species reacted when invisibility no longer shielded the watchers. In a secure military base, the Valari prepared for contact. Lights dimmed, sensors adjusted, and the team assembled. Tavaran's body shimmered as the cloak was lifted. The other Valari followed, revealing their elongated forms, sleek limbs, and luminous eyes. They were imposing, as always. But something had changed. Their usual confidence had shifted into uncertainty. Across the room, the human leader waited. A diplomat known for calm reasoning and strategic intelligence, he had been briefed on strange occurrences. He knew, somehow, that something unseen had been observing humanity for centuries. Yet, he remained composed. When the Valari revealed themselves fully, there was no panic, no screams, No immediate aggression. The diplomat stepped forward, eyes steady, and spoke softly. We've known you were here. We've felt your presence. And now you stand before us. The question is simple. Why? Tavaran felt a chill. He had never heard such confidence from any species. Humans had always been cautious, timid, or reactive when confronted by the unknown. But this one stood firm, his words calm and deliberate. Varen, the Valari commander, stepped forward. We are observers, he said, his voice steady but tinged with unease. We have studied your species silently for many generations. We seek knowledge and understanding, not harm. The diplomat nodded slightly. Knowledge, yes, but your presence has been felt. Humans have sensed you. We have recorded, monitored, and anticipated your movements. Your technology does not conceal you from us, as you believed. We have a gift, older than your machines. We sense what cannot be seen. The room was quiet, save for the hum of equipment. The Valari stared, their centuries of superiority challenged by a species they had believed primitive and blind. Outside, the city, humans across the globe reacted similarly to invisible Valari. In a forest in Canada, a ranger paused mid-step, speaking softly. I see you. I know you are here, but we are ready. In the deserts of Africa, a shepherd whispered into the wind. I know you are watching. I can feel your presence. In small towns, children laughed quietly at shadows moving in their rooms, saying, We see you. You cannot hide. Every human who sensed the Valari responded not with fear, but with calm awareness. They acknowledged the presence, adapted their movements, and sometimes even spoke to it as if sharing a quiet secret. This instinctive awareness had proven true across continents. The Valari were no longer untouchable. Their invisibility was no shield, their silence no protection. Back in the military base, the diplomat leaned forward slightly, his voice calm and measured. You believed invisibility gave you power. You believed we would never notice. But humans have survived countless dangers. We feel what others cannot. We sense what cannot be measured. And now, you stand before us, fully visible, and we still remain calm. Tavaran watched silently, humbled. For centuries, Valari had considered themselves masters of observation, untouchable and unseen. And yet, this one human, representative of an entire species, had dismantled that confidence with quiet words and steady awareness. Varen finally spoke. Your species. It is remarkable. We underestimated you. We believed invisibility and technology made us superior. But your perception, your instinct, it exceeds our understanding. The diplomat nodded. It is our gift. Humans have evolved to survive, to sense danger, and to act before it arrives. You may hide, but we feel. You may be silent, but we hear the rhythm of your presence, and we are not afraid. Tavaran reflected on the countless humans he had observed over the weeks. Farmers, soldiers, children, parents, scientists, they had all displayed the same quiet, confident awareness. Humans did not panic. They did not flee. They adapted. They whispered softly to the invisible. They moved with intention. The Valari began to realize that invisibility was meaningless against instinct. Cloaking fields and silent movement meant nothing to a species that could sense the unseen. Humans were awake in ways the Valari could not fully quantify. Relon, observing from the side, whispered to Tavaran, We are no longer the hunters. For the first time, we may be the ones observed and judged. Tavaran nodded slowly. Humanity had turned the tables. They had not used weapons or machines. They had used instinct, perception, and calm confidence. Their hidden gifts that no technology could replicate. Across the planet, whispers of humanity's awareness spread. In quiet towns, workers paused and whispered into the empty air. I see you. I know you are here. In schools, children spoke softly to the shadows. We know you. You cannot hide. In bustling cities, people felt the invisible and responded without fear. speaking quietly or simply adjusting their movements with awareness. The Valari recorded every incident. Their centuries of superiority were being challenged, not by machines or power, but by the instinctive perception of a single species. Tavaran understood the magnitude of this. Humanity's ability to sense invisible beings and respond calmly had shifted the balance of power entirely. They were no longer passive subjects. They were active participants in their own defense. In the final moments of the encounter at the Daowei military base, the diplomat leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. You thought invisibility made you powerful. But humans, we do not need to see everything to know it is there. We trust our instincts, we adapt, we anticipate, and we are ready. The Valari Council listened, stunned. For the first time in history, they had been confronted not with fear, but with calm certainty. They had been seen, and that seeing had revealed a truth they could not deny. Humans were extraordinary. Tavaran looked at the diplomat and felt a deep respect. The human's quiet confidence carried the weight of generations of survival, the resilience of a species that had faced countless dangers and emerged alive and aware. The Valari realized that their greatest weapon, the invisibility they had relied on for centuries, was meaningless against humans. The very thing they had assumed made them untouchable had become irrelevant. As the Valari departed the base, invisible no longer, the humans returned to their lives. No celebrations, no panic, just calm continuation. They had sensed the Watchers, acknowledged their presence, and moved forward. Tavaran observed silently. Across the city, humans continued to whisper softly to empty streets, quiet reassurances or warnings. I know you are here, but I am not afraid. You cannot hide. I can feel you. We see you. We know you. Each whisper was a small assertion of humanity's resilience, awareness, and instinctive power. The Valari had come to Earth expecting secrecy and control. Instead, they had encountered perception, awareness, and courage that could not be measured. Tavaran returned to the command ship, his thoughts heavy with realization. Humans were not ordinary. They were awake in ways no other species he had observed had ever been. Their instincts were their weapon, their calm awareness their shield. Technology, invisibility, and centuries of observation meant little against this species. Varen addressed the council. We have learned an important truth. Humans are not prey. They are aware. They sense the unseen. They anticipate danger and act with calm confidence. They are a species of resilience and strength. We must respect them, not dominate them. Reelan added, We have underestimated them for centuries. We cannot do so again. Their instincts, awareness, and courage make them extraordinary. Tavaran nodded. Humanity had whispered into the darkness and shown the Valari the limits of their power. They had demonstrated that being unseen did not equal being untouchable. And the Valari had learned a lesson they would never forget. As night fell across the globe, humans continued their quiet assertions of awareness. In cities, forests, deserts, and fields, people whispered softly to the invisible, acknowledged the presence of unseen observers, and carried on with their lives. The Valari watched from afar, humbled and in some ways, inspired. They had encountered a species that had evolved instincts older than their technology, awareness sharper than their sensors, and courage greater than any weapon. Humanity had proven that the unseen could be felt, that instinct could overcome technology, and that awareness could turn hunters into the observed. And somewhere in a quiet city street, the man from New York whispered once more into the empty night, You are here. I see you. But I am not afraid. Tavaran listened silently, a new respect filling him. Humanity had awakened the Watchers. They had shown the invisible that being seen was a gift and being aware was power. The Valari would never forget it.